So listen, there's this clip being passed around, and if you haven't seen it yet, you probably should. First of all, it's absolutely absurd. Second of all, it is the perfect example of where Canadian politics is today and why it can be so draining to follow this stuff like I do to make all of these videos for you, bringing you the most important information. And it's kind of the one reason I wouldn't want to be a politician. So I'm going to show you this wild 3-minute clip that's making the rounds, and then make sure to stay around afterwards because we're going to talk about it because there's a lot that we can take away from it. But just watch this, it's wild.
My question is for the Minister of Middle Class Prosperity, who is a Member of Parliament here in Ottawa. What is the average cost for a home in the City of Ottawa?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, my title is the Minister of Tourism and Associate Minister of Finance. I'm sure my honourable colleague across the way knows that. But let me say, Mr. Speaker, 156,000 jobs.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
The Minister of Treasury Board can help by telling us the average cost of a house in the nation's capital.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to say 106% of jobs have been recovered since the lowest point of the pandemic.
Member for Carleton.
What is the average increase in house prices since this government took office in 2015?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's economy contracted by 17% between February and April 2020, the largest and most sudden contraction in real GDP since the Great Depression, and we're already back.
Honourable Member for Carleton.
Just the average house price.
The Honourable Minister.
5.5 million Canadians lost their jobs, and they're all back.
Member for Carleton.
And what would they pay for the average house?
The
In
Minister.
2020, unemployment rated more than doubled from a pre-pandemic level of 5.7% to a record of 13.7%, 6% now.
Member for Carleton.
I think there's a problem with the audio in the chamber. The question was, what is the average cost of a house in Canada today?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government has made historic investments in housing affordability, and we will continue to do so.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
And how affordable are such houses?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government has made historic investments in housing. We will continue to do so that housing is affordable for all Canadians.
Honourable Member for Carleton.
If so, how much have house prices increased since this government took office?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let's talk about how it is possible for people to afford their houses with good employment, and that's why employment income fell by an unprecedented $28 billion during the pandemic.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
One last time, in dollars, how much have house prices risen since this government took office?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, consumer confidence is back. People are back to work. 106% of jobs have been recovered since the lowest point in the pandemic.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
How much?
Minister.
From a steep decline in profits, we're back 66% since the bottom of the pandemic.
Carleton.
How much?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the economy is recovering.
Member for Carleton.
Does the minister have any idea what it costs for the average person to buy a house in Canada? Does he have any idea, or does he even care?
Mr. Speaker,
the Minister.
City helped more than 213,000 businesses stay afloat.
I think that the average Canadian can see how much this government knows and cares about the cost of buying a home in this country, which is their level of care is zero. I'm going to give him one last chance. Can he tell us what it costs the average Canadian to buy the average house in Canada today? How much?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the CERB helped nearly 9 million Canadians who lost their jobs when COVID hit, making housing affordable for them. We will continue to do so.
Of course, here we see the current leader of the Conservatives, Pierre Poilievre, questioning the Liberal Member of Parliament about the increased cost of housing, and obviously this is an absurd back and forth that goes on for way too long with no real answer to the question. And I tried to find the source for this clip, and it seems that I've dated it back to about exactly a year ago, December of 2021, when this was all happening, before Pierre Poilievre was even leader of the Conservative Party. And a takeaway for many people from this clip will be that Liberal ministers only answer questions when it's convenient for them and will try to sort of dodge things that are unpleasant that they don't want to talk about. But I think that the takeaway from this clip, as well as the ones I'm about to show you, is a lot more broad than that. From what I've seen covering this for the past number of years, being very in the muck of it, is that the vast majority of what happens in Canadian politics isn't actually to make positive change. Instead, it's to create the perception that your party is the good guy and the opposition party is the bad guy, and I don't care who you are or what party you vote for. Or, this applies to everyone, be it NDP, Conservatives, or Liberals, everyone does it. Politicians say things to make you afraid or mad, and they direct that anger towards their political rivals, right? Of course, the clip that we just watched makes the Liberals look bad, especially on the housing policy, and I tend to agree they haven't done a good job on that file in the past number of years. But take a look at this next compilation of clips with the Conservatives criticizing the Liberals for their carbon tax.
Problem that's about to worsen as the government plans to triple the tax on gas, groceries, and heat. This government wants to triple the tax. Why won't they axe the tax?
Cancel its plan to triple its carbon tax.
Plans to triple. No.
His plan to triple the carbon tax.
Forcing BC to triple the carbon tax.
And I tend to agree that Liberals should probably take a closer look at their climate plan, given that Canada ranks near the bottom of all countries when it comes to actually hitting their climate goals, and perhaps the carbon pricing program in its current iteration isn't as effective as they thought it would be at reducing emissions. But at the same time, Conservative politicians never come out and say what I just said. The carbon price program isn't working. Look at the results, it's not working. Maybe it needs to be altered to be more effective and more targeted so as to affect working class Canadians less. Instead, they make comments that sound good as 12-second sound bites that news broadcasts can play for Canadians who don't really care to follow the nuances and the details of these discussions, but instead form their opinions from catchy slogans that sound good because they rhyme or something like that. And that is my issue these days. There's just no nuance, and even within every single party, for many members of parliament, if they have a differing opinion from the one that their party has publicly stated, well, they can't come out and say that opinion. No, if they were to go against party lines or not toe the party line, well, they could essentially kiss their political career goodbye with little chance of ever moving up the ranks within their own party. Everything's black or white. There is no middle ground. There's no gray area. And as an example, earlier this month, Pierre Poilievre said something that some agreed with and some found inflammatory, saying that Canada is broken, or it feels like everything in Canada is broken. Here's the clip, and here's Trudeau's recent response, and I think you'll be shocked by both of them.
Unfortunately, though, it feels like everything is broken in this country right now. Whether it is the 40-year high in inflation that Justin Trudeau has caused through his inflationary deficits and taxes, whether it's the 35-year-olds living in their parents' basements because house prices have doubled and Vancouver is now the third most overpriced housing market on planet Earth, worse than New York City, Los Angeles, London, England, Singapore, places with more money and people and less land. Whether it is the nearly 100% increase in fuel prices or the projected doubling of home heating bills that is about to hit families as the winter is upon us. And it's not just money. Here in Vancouver, we see crime and homelessness and addiction soaring. Under Justin Trudeau, violent crime is up 32%. Here in Vancouver, we see tent cities popping up. BC has had a 300% increase in drug overdose deaths since Trudeau took office. It's projected this year 2,000 of our fellow citizens will lose their lives in this province because of drug overdoses.
Mr. Poilievre might choose to undermine our democracy by amplifying conspiracy theories. He might decide to run away from journalists when they ask him tough questions. That's how he brands himself, and that's his choice. But when he says that Canada is broken, that's where we draw the line. This is Canada. And when we roll up our sleeves to do this work together to build an economy that works for all Canadians, we see it. Canada is not broken. Mr. Poilievre is a career politician who's been part of the Conservative Party establishment with Stephen Harper and others for 20 years. He's ready to say anything to anyone if he thinks that could help him win. And that's reckless. Mr. spreading disinformation and conspiracy theories from the darkest corners of the internet, that's reckless. Pretending you can opt out of inflation with cryptocurrencies, that's reckless. I mean, think about it. If people had listened to Poilievre's advice back in March and had invested their life savings in Bitcoin to opt out of inflation, or their parents had invested their retirement savings, they would have seen close to 60% of those savings wiped out. That's not the kind of thoughtful economic solution that people have a right to expect from their leaders.
So Poilievre says he thinks that everything feels broken in Canada, and Trudeau says, no, Canada's just fine, Canada is not broken. It's an example of the lack of middle ground in politics these days. Both leaders make their speeches more about shifting the blame and pointing the finger than actually about their own policies and goals and how they think they can make things better and their vision for the future. Poilievre says that inflation is entirely the fault of Trudeau, when in reality Trudeau's spending on social programs is only responsible for a portion of inflation, while unprecedented economic shocks due to COVID, as well as perhaps some mismanagement by the Bank of Canada and central banks across the entire world, has driven inflation higher than most of us can remember in at least recent memory. At the same time, Trudeau just tries to discredit all of Poilievre's ideas and his plans, many of which have merit and have resonated with a lot of Canadians. He tries to attack Poilievre's character instead of his policies, saying that he's a reckless conspiracy theorist who wants you to invest all of your money in cryptocurrency, which I might say is a very convenient jab, right? Because we didn't see the Liberals making any kind of negative points against cryptocurrency while prices were up, but now that prices are down, it's an easy point in the media to come out against it in every single way you possibly can and take shots at the Conservative leader, even though if they did believe there were any dangers here, they should have been talking about it even before prices were down, right? I don't know. What do you think here? Am I a little bit off base here, or does it seem like 90% of what happens in Canadian politics is just time-wasting pandering with no room for subtlety? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm just going to keep on drudging through a lot of this garbage so that you don't have to, bringing you clips and analysis and sort of synthesizing the information from the videos I watch and the articles I read. But when people ask me why I don't try to go into politics or try to start down that road, this is why. I couldn't pick a side. They're all wrong and sometimes, and they're all right sometimes, but the way that the system is structured, you have to pick a side and you have to toe the party line no matter which side you're on, and that's just something that I don't see myself doing. But no matter what you think of all of this, if you think I'm totally wrong on some of this stuff, or if you think I'm right on some points, let me know down in the comment section below. I read every single one, and I try to get back to a bunch of them, and if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the channel so you can keep on getting Canadian-focused updates just like this one. And with all of that said, thanks so much for watching, everybody. I really hope this video helped you out at least a little bit, and I'll see you next time.